Begin with a young woman named Sophia, a determined girl from Brazil who grew up in an ordinary middle-class family and carried one extraordinary dream in her heart. She wanted to become a doctor. Her father worked long hours as a taxi driver, while her mother taught at a local school. And although they could not afford a luxurious life, they constantly reminded Sophia that education could open doors that money could not. When Sophia was 10 years old, her younger brother became seriously ill and had to be taken to a hospital, where she watched a calm and compassionate doctor treat him with confidence until he recovered. That experience changed something inside her. From that day forward, she imagined herself wearing a white coat and helping people in their most frightening moments. As Sophia grew older, however, she discovered a major obstacle standing between her and that dream. English, medical education required her to understand advanced books, research, lectures, and international information, yet her English was extremely weak. At school, she could manage simple greetings, but longer sentences confused her completely. One afternoon, her teacher asked her to read aloud, and Sophia struggled so badly that several classmates laughed. She returned home embarrassed and wondered how someone who could barely understand English could ever become a doctor. That evening, she told her father about her fear. Instead of telling her to abandon the dream, he calmly said that if English was the obstacle, then English had to become the skill she mastered. Her parents decided to make a difficult sacrifice and support her journey abroad. After careful discussion, Sophia chose Canada because she believed living in an English-speaking environment would force her to practice every day while giving her access to stronger educational opportunities. The decision was frightening because her family had limited savings, but her parents believed their daughter's future was worth the sacrifice. Before Sophia left Brazil, her mother held her tightly and reminded her never to give up simply because something became difficult. With one suitcase, limited money, and a dream much bigger than her circumstances, Sophia boarded a plane. When she arrived in Toronto, reality hit her immediately. The cold weather was completely different from what she knew at home. The city felt enormous, and ordinary conversations sounded impossibly fast. At the airport, a simple question from a taxi driver left her confused because she could not understand what he was saying. She eventually showed him the address on her phone and reached her small rented room. Once alone, she cried. She wondered whether she had made a terrible mistake. The following morning, she attended her English class, where students introduced themselves one by one. When her turn arrived, Sophia stood nervously and managed only a few broken sentences. She sat down feeling embarrassed, but something inside her refused to surrender. That night, she made herself a promise. She would stop being afraid of mistakes and would practice until English no longer controlled her. She created a simple routine. Every day, she would learn new vocabulary, listen to English conversations, read aloud, and speak whenever she had an opportunity. At first, progress was painfully slow, but Sophia understood that her dream required patience. She had not traveled across the world to give up after a few uncomfortable weeks. Every difficult conversation became another lesson, every mistake became another correction, and every small improvement became proof that she was moving forward. Continue Sophia's journey by showing how she transformed her fear of English into a daily challenge and slowly began building confidence. During her first months in Canada, she discovered that classroom English and real-life English were very different. In class, teachers spoke clearly and carefully, but outside the classroom, people spoke quickly, shortened words, used casual expressions, and expected immediate answers. Sophia often understood a sentence several seconds after the conversation had already moved on. Instead of allowing embarrassment to defeat her, she created unusual ways to practice. One of her favorite techniques was pretending to speak on the phone while walking through the city. She would quietly describe everything around her in English: the weather, the buildings, the people, the stores, and whatever she planned to do next. This allowed her to practice speaking without worrying about someone judging her. She also created a rule that she would learn several useful words every day and immediately use them in sentences. At home, she watched English programs and gradually reduced her dependence on subtitles because she wanted her ears to become comfortable with natural speech. One day, she entered a coffee shop and decided that she would have a complete conversation in English instead of simply pointing at what she wanted. Her heart raced when the worker asked what she would like, but Sophia took a breath and confidently ordered her drink. The conversation was short, yet she walked away feeling as if she had achieved something enormous. She realized that fluency did not begin with perfect grammar, It began with the courage to speak despite mistakes. Life outside the classroom remained difficult. Sophia had to manage rent, transportation, food, tuition, and other expenses while working part-time at a small cafe. Her routine became exhausting. She attended classes, worked shifts, returned home tired, and still forced herself to study. She missed her family and sometimes wondered whether the sacrifice was worth it. But whenever she thought about quitting, she remembered her mother's words and the reason she had come to Canada. After several months of constant exposure, something remarkable happened. Sophia noticed that she was beginning to understand simple English sentences without translating them into Portuguese first. One day, a cashier asked her a routine question, and Sophia answered immediately without mentally translating anything. She walked away smiling because she realized her brain had started processing English naturally. Her next challenge was confidence around native speakers. She often avoided longer conversations because she feared misunderstanding slang or responding incorrectly. Eventually, she decided that avoiding conversations was preventing her progress, so she deliberately began talking to classmates, coworkers, and people at local events. She joined language exchanges and discovered that conversations became easier when she stopped trying to sound perfect. She also began using a technique called shadowing. She listened carefully to native speakers and repeated their sentences, copying their rhythm, pronunciation, and emotion. Whenever she made a mistake, she wrote it in a notebook and reviewed the correction later. Instead of feeling ashamed of mistakes, she treated them as personal lessons. Her English improved, but her financial situation remained difficult. There were moments when she had very little money and questioned whether she should return home. On one especially difficult evening, she sat alone in her room, exhausted and discouraged. For a few minutes, she considered giving up. Then she remembered the child she had once been, standing beside her sick brother and dreaming of becoming a doctor. She realized that the difficult version of her journey was still part of the dream. She wiped her tears, opened her English notebook, and started studying again. Complete Sophia's transformation by showing how the skill she once feared, eventually, became one of the strongest tools supporting her medical dream. After months of disciplined practice, Sophia reached a level where ordinary English conversations no longer frightened her. But she still faced one enormous challenge: gaining the qualifications necessary for medical school. She needed to demonstrate strong English ability, so she prepared for an international language examination. The preparation was demanding. She practiced reading difficult passages, wrote essays under time limits, recorded herself speaking, expanded her vocabulary, and studied medical terminology. Some days she felt confident, while other days she wondered whether she was good enough. Instead of depending on motivation, she followed her routine. She understood that success was built through repeated effort, especially on the days when she did not feel inspired. When examination day finally arrived, Sophia entered the room nervous but prepared. She remembered every early morning, every awkward conversation, every correction, every night she had studied while exhausted. She took a deep breath and completed the exam. When the results arrived, she discovered that she had achieved the score she needed. She cried because the result represented much more than a test. It represented every moment when she had refused to quit. Her English had become good enough to move her toward medical education. Soon afterward, Sophia entered medical school, but she quickly discovered that reaching medical school did not mean the struggle was over. Medical textbooks contained difficult terminology, professors explained complicated concepts, and assignments required precise academic English. For a while, Sophia felt like the frightened student she had once been. Instead of panicking, she used the same strategy that had brought her this far. She listened carefully, recorded difficult explanations when appropriate, created vocabulary cards, joined study groups, and practiced explaining medical concepts aloud. Whenever she encountered an unfamiliar term, she researched its meaning and used it in context. Gradually, the subjects became easier. Her English improved alongside her medical knowledge, and she began participating confidently in discussions and presentations. Years of effort eventually brought her to graduation. When Sophia walked across the stage and received her medical qualification, she thought about the little girl who had once watched a doctor save her brother. She also remembered the day she had cried because she could not read a simple English sentence. The distance between those two moments felt enormous. After graduation, Sophia began working as a doctor and finally experienced the purpose behind all those sacrifices. One day, a frightened child arrived at the hospital, reminding Sophia of herself when she was young. She calmly spoke to the child and reassured the family. In that moment, Sophia understood that her journey had come full circle. English had not magically created her success. Her discipline, courage, education, persistence, and willingness to learn had done that. English had simply become one of the powerful tools that allowed her to reach opportunities that once seemed impossible. Sophia realized that the most important lesson was not that everyone needed to move to another country or follow exactly the same path. The real lesson was that a weakness can become a strength when you are willing to work on it consistently. She could have used poverty, fear, embarrassment, loneliness, or mistakes as excuses, but instead she used them as reasons to become stronger. Her story became a reminder that dreams rarely arrive through one dramatic moment. They are built through ordinary decisions repeated every day. If you are learning English today, you may feel embarrassed by your pronunciation or frustrated when you cannot understand someone. You may believe other people are naturally smarter or more talented. But remember Sophia's journey. Progress begins when you stop waiting to become perfect and start practicing anyway. Speak even when your voice shakes. Read even when the words seem difficult. Listen even when you understand only part of the conversation. Make mistakes, learn from them, and continue. Your first sentence may be broken, your first conversation may be awkward, and your first attempt may fail, but none of those moments decides your future. What matters is whether you continue. Sophia once believed English was the wall standing between her and her dream. Eventually, she discovered that it could become the bridge.